Everyone, it's Sandra here, and what we are looking in on are the contents of our fourth garden worm tower or bucket that we sunk into our garden bed. We harvested this 2 weeks ago, and this is just being left. I haven't looked in on it. And if you remember, we didn't find as many worms in this bucket. I attributed it to maybe that I found, probably 6 or 10 of those centipedes, and I'm thinking, are they cleaning up the wisps as they emerge? I don't know. I'm now thinking we didn't find as many worms for two reasons. First, because the castings were wetter. And, when Landa and I quickly go through castings to pull out worms when we reset our garden buckets, the castings were not normally that wet. We could see the worms, whereas these ones were muddier, and I think that made it harder for us to find the worms. But I do think that there were fewer of them. And partly maybe because that garden bucket wasn't accessible to me. It was in a part of the garden I couldn't get to, so Landon got over there very rarely, and it was normally when he had some ungainly branch that he wanted to dispose of, something like something dead off of ornamental or a vegetable, a big piece, like an entire stalk from a collard green or something. And I would just say, oh, go stick it in the garden worm bucket. And so it got intermittent feedings, but not really the normal type of worm feedings that my other garden buckets got, because we gave them apples, we gave them our food scraps, we gave them just baby kale leaves, not the entire kale plant. That would be a rougher, more fibery feeding for these worms. So I think the worms self-regulated. They didn't populate the bin. And you can also see there's still a lot of that fiber left over. These are like needles or something. So Landon probably, gathered up a bunch of our driveway leaves at one point and put them in this garden tower. And this contents is showing twigs and leaves and whatnot. So I've been looking through this, and I am finding some baby worms. So there were obviously some worms that were in here, some cocoons that were in here that have hatched over the last 2 weeks. I'm also finding things like sticks, but these castings are going out to our garden, and all of our garden soil is covered with arborist wood chips. This little stick, I don't know what it's from, doesn't matter. It's well infused with castings on all sides. It will just enhance our arborist wood chips with whatever microbes are on that little stick. So I am not worried at all that these castings are not sifted, but I am still a little concerned that they are a little bit muddy, and we want to be able to spread them in a fluffy way. We want them to go a long way. So we want to get them under our rhododendrons perhaps, and maybe some of our tender shrubs like fuchsias. I've got a beautiful katsura Japanese tree at the front that's in a container, so I would like to give it some castings. There's another worm on my thumb there. And that's a bit bigger. I don't think that would have been hatched in the last 2 weeks. So we've got some tender shrubs, and I want the castings to be spread out. So what I'm going to do is, again, you can do this if you have worms left in your castings and you're maturing them, or what I'm doing is I'm getting the worms out of here, just the odd one that I'm finding. And these castings are going to go to the garden. It's October the 18th today. Probably going to go to the garden very soon, probably in the next few days. So here's my powdered leaves. These are not powdered wood chips. These are actually powdered leaves. And you've probably seen me do this before. And I just turn this into castings. Now, if there are worms in here, that powdered leaves, what a great carbon source for your worms that are left in, well, quite frankly, a worm bin that's gone muddy, or in this case, a castings tote that got a bit muddy. And so you can see, I can tell you, because I'm the one feeling it, But you can see the texture of these castings change as I work these powdered leaves into this material. Oops, sorry, I joggled the camera there. But you can see that they are profoundly changing even in the little bit that I've worked through them. And these powdered leaves soak up the excess moisture. They're a powder, and so they will swell. And, you know, as they sit in here for a couple hours, they will continue to soak up the excess moisture. And these castings now will be far easier for us to just take our hands and spread. Like, there are still some larger unprocessed material in here, but the castings themselves will be far easier for us to just spread in a light and fluffy way. And that was just one handful of my powdered leaves. We just run them, actually we run them through our Vitamix, if you can believe it. So, you know, I am finding a few worms here and there. That's a baby. And I'm just putting them in a little container that I've got here with a damp tissue on the bottom so they can go hide underneath it. And those worms will go out to Gilligan, my outdoor worm farm, when I've gone through them all. But I thought that's a tip for you then. Set aside some of your leaves, keep them dry. If you powder them, they make a great castings conditioner. You know, if this goes on your garden with, you know, some dried powdered leaves right in it, that's not going to hurt anything. It's just going to add more carbon back into your garden. And if there are worms left in here, you know, if we delay in getting these castings out, or if this was a worm bin and not castings, the worms absolutely love when you distribute that dried powdered leaves into the material. I found that the worms go everywhere because they are eating up that powdered, the microbes that come along with those great powdered leaves. All right, everyone, this is our set it and forget it worm bin castings, and they are now good to go out to our garden. Bye for now.